The moment Tyrik John opened his mouth and spoke in a language 12 highly paid interpreters couldn't crack, you could hear $47 million land on the table like a thunderclap. Tyrik John woke up at 6 in the morning, not to an alarm, but to his 8-year-old daughter, Maya, pulling at his sleeve and whispering that she was hungry. He sat up on the edge of a mattress that had seen better decades, rubbed his eyes, and shuffled to a kitchen the size of a closet to make scrambled eggs with the last 3 eggs in the fridge. Welcome to Kindness Arena. If you believe in kindness, second chances and unseen connections that change lives, please help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, comment your thoughts, where you are watching from, and share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated. Your support keeps these powerful true stories alive. He had a double shift today. The cleaning company he worked for had a contract with Brooks & Summit Capital, one of the most powerful investment firms in the city, and on big deal days, they needed every floor spotless before the executives arrived. Tyrik had been on the night crew there for 11 months. He knew every corridor, every bathroom tile, every conference room. The executives walked past him every single day without making eye contact. He dropped Maya off at school, kissed her forehead, and told her he'd pick her up by 4. Then he boarded 2 buses to get to the towering glass building on 5th Avenue, badge scanned in through the service entrance, and began his morning. On the 42nd floor, the atmosphere was nothing short of volcanic. Liam Brooks, CEO of Brooks & Summit Capital, stood at the head of a conference table that cost more than Tyrik's annual salary. He was 51 years old, silver-templed, sharp-jawed, and furious. His suit was bespoke. His watch was obscene. His patience completely gone. Seated across from him was a delegation from a private investment group out of a region that straddled the border of Eastern Europe and the Caucasus. They had flown in overnight. They represented a consortium that held mineral rights over a stretch of land quietly estimated to contain reserves worth hundreds of millions. The deal on the table, a joint acquisition framework, was worth $4 to $7 million at entry, with royalty structures that could triple that within a decade. There was only one problem. The lead delegate, an older man named Vasile Osman, spoke almost exclusively in a rare hybrid dialect, a form of Mingrelian mixed with heavily archaic Ottoman Turkish loanwords and a regional Georgian subdialect that had essentially been isolated from mainstream linguistic evolution for over a century. His younger colleague translated into Standard Georgian, but Vasile himself refused to sign anything unless communication was conducted directly in his language. It was a matter of respect, a matter of trust. Liam had brought in 3 interpreters the week before. They'd all shaken their heads. He'd hired a specialist from a prestigious translation firm. She lasted 40 minutes before admitting she could only catch fragments. Then came the academic, a professor from Columbia's linguistics department who specialized in Kartvelian languages. He sat with the delegate for 20 minutes, turned pale, and quietly said, "I've never encountered this specific convergence in a living speaker. I'm sorry." Over the course of 72 hours, 12 interpreters had failed. 12. Some of the finest language professionals in the country. Several had attempted to bluff their way through and been caught immediately by Vasile, who would fold his hands, go silent, and stare at the wall, a gesture his aide had explained meant he was now distrustful and would not sign until trust was rebuilt. Liam Brooks had never in 30 years of business hit a wall he couldn't buy his way through. Until now. The delegation's flight home was booked for 7 p.m. It was now 9:14 in the morning. Liam had exactly 9 hours and 46 minutes to either close this deal or watch it evaporate. His legal team was in the adjacent room. His PR team was on standby. His personal assistant had cycled through every translation service on the eastern seaboard overnight, yet nothing. Tyrik pushed his cleaning cart past the conference room on his way to the executive washrooms at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. He didn't mean to listen. He never did. But as he passed, he heard something that made his hands go still on the cart handle. The old delegate, Vasile, had leaned forward and was saying something in a low, weary voice. Not to anyone in the room, really, more to himself. A soft, muttered phrase that carried into the hallway like smoke under a door. Tyrik understood every word. He stood there for exactly 4 seconds, processing. His heart rate didn't spike. Tyrik John had learned long ago to keep his composure in moments that other people didn't think he'd been prepared for. He thought of Maya. He thought of the electricity bill. He thought of the second-hand winter coat he'd been meaning to replace for 2 years. Then he knocked on the conference room door. The room turned to look at him. A man in a gray cleaning uniform, a laminated badge on his chest that said Maintenance, T. John, standing in the doorway holding a microfiber cloth like he just wandered in by accident. Liam's assistant, Helena, moved toward him immediately with a tight smile. "This room is in use. You can come back later." Tyrik spoke past her, directly to Vasile, in the old man's dialect. Every head in the room turned. Vasile's chin lifted slowly. His eyes, which had been flat and resigned for the past 3 days, sharpened like a hawk catching movement in a field. Tyrik said it again, clearly, a greeting. The regional form, the old form, the one you only knew if you had been inside that world. And Vasile Osman, who had not smiled in 3 days of meeting, smiled. Liam Brooks stared. He could not process what he was seeing. Helena looked at her boss. Her boss looked at his legal counsel. His legal counsel looked at the cleaning man. Who Liam started, then stopped. What none of them knew, what they had never thought to ask, was that Tyrik John had not always been a janitor. He had grown up the son of a Haitian-American linguist father and a mother who had emigrated from the Republic of Georgia as a child. He'd grown up hearing 3 languages at breakfast and 5 by the time he was a teenager. His father had been obsessed with language, not academically, but spiritually. He believed words were the architecture of worlds, and he had passed that belief into Tyrik like bone marrow. By 16, Tyrik spoke Haitian Creole, French, English, Standard Georgian, Russian, and Arabic. He had a scholarship to study applied linguistics at Georgetown. He was going to be extraordinary, and everyone who knew him knew it. Then his father died, then his mother got sick, then he had Maya at 22 with a woman who left before Maya was 2, and then, slowly, the life he had mapped out for himself, the life that had been supposed to happen, got buried under the weight of surviving. But the languages never left. They lived in him the way childhood lives in a person, quietly, permanently. He had continued studying on his own through libraries, YouTube, obscure online communities, night classes when he could afford the bus fare. He picked up Mingrelian from an online archive project. He absorbed the Ottoman loanword patterns from a digitized Ottoman manuscript collection. He had never expected to use it for anything except the pure private satisfaction of knowing it. 8 languages, all of them fluent, all of them invisible to the world because the world had never thought to ask the man mopping the floor. Liam Brooks pulled himself together faster than most men could have. "Close the door," he said quietly to Helena. "Get him a chair." What happened in the next 4 hours was something the legal team would talk about for years. Tyrik sat at that conference table, his cleaning cart still parked in the hallway, and he translated, not just words, meaning. He understood Vasile's cultural codes, his hesitations, the loaded silences between sentences. When Vasile expressed a concern about the structure of the royalty clause using an old Georgian proverb about a river that feeds a village but belongs to the mountain, Tyrik translated not just the proverb but its weight, the emotional argument the old man was making, the trust he was asking for. Liam listened. For the first time in 72 hours, he actually heard what the other side was saying. Adjustments were made. Concessions were offered. Vasile spoke at length, freely, finally, and Tyrik rendered every sentence with precision and care. At one point, Vasile paused mid-thought and looked at Tyrik and asked, in the dialect, where he was from, that he knew these words so well. Tyrik answered honestly. He said his mother's family was from near the western lowlands. That he had learned from records and from love. Vasile was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded, and in that nod, something had been decided that had nothing to do with the contract. At 2:47 p.m., Vasile Osman uncapped his pen and signed the acquisition framework. $47 million, done. The room exhaled, hands were shaken. Helena was crying quietly near the window and pretending she wasn't. The legal team began their flurry. Liam Brooks stood still in the middle of it all, watching Tyrik quietly collect his microfiber cloth from the edge of the table where he'd set it down hours earlier. "Wait," Liam said. Tyrik stopped. Liam Brooks, a man who had built an empire on reading people, on knowing talent, on spotting leverage, looked at the man in the maintenance uniform for what felt like the first time. He thought about the 12 interpreters. He thought about the 72 hours. He thought about how close he had come to losing $47 million. "What's your name?" Liam asked. Not because he didn't see the badge but because he wanted to say it correctly. "Tyrik John." "Tyrik." Liam let it sit. "How many languages do you speak?" 8. A pause. 8, Liam repeated, almost to himself. He looked at Helena. He looked at his legal team. He looked back at Tyrik. 8. "I have to go pick up my daughter at 4, Tyrik said simply. Tyrik John did not become a billionaire overnight. Life is not a fairy tale, and this story respects him too much to make it one. What happened was better than a fairy tale, because it was real. Liam Brooks offered him a position the next morning, Director of International Relations, a role that had never existed at the firm before that day. The salary was 12 times what Tyrik made on the cleaning crew. He would travel with delegations. He would be in rooms where language built bridges worth hundreds of millions. Tyrik negotiated one condition before accepting, that Brooks and Summit partner with a city literacy program to fund language education in under-resourced schools. Liam agreed and later said it was the cheapest and most valuable negotiation he'd ever been part of. Maya got the winter coat and a bicycle. And every book she pointed at in the bookstore. And Vasily Osman, before boarding his flight that evening, had asked one of the junior staff to deliver a small envelope to the maintenance worker who had spoken to him like a human being. Inside was a handwritten note in the old dialect and a photograph of his hometown, the western lowlands of Georgia, river green and ancient. It said, "The river that knows its source never runs dry." Tyrik kept it on his desk for the rest of his career. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even a broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today and subscribe to Kindness Arena because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were the millionaire. Would you have allowed the cleaner to enter the conference room? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? Would love to hear your story.